If I tell you there's someone who's killed 3 people, what would you feel towards that person? When he was 17, he killed 3 people from a rival gang. He shot them dead. Once he threw me into a well that everyone in my life left me. Absent father. He wasn't even there at the birth, let alone be there in the early part of the child's life. The attachments that we form in the early part of our life. One of the problems we have in the UK at the moment, we have this problem of knife crime. You know, you're looking at me, you look at someone for more than 1 second, he'll take a knife out and stab you. Where does this come from? This child grows up thinking, there must be something wrong with me. Hi everyone, and welcome to part 3 of my series, How to Help Your Child Avoid a Life of Crime. I spent 3 years in the United States in prison, and my final year was in a United States federal prison in Pennsylvania. There was a prisoner that I met there that had been in prison. At the time that I met him, he had been in prison for 25 years and he was serving a life sentence. He was a Jamaican prisoner. And if I tell you that he killed 3 people, what would your reaction be? If I tell you there's someone who's killed 3 people, what would you feel towards that person? Anger? You'd feel hatred towards that person? Bad person, I don't want that person anywhere near me or my children or my family. Good job he's in prison, hope he dies in prison. Fair enough, that's what most people, that's a normal reaction that most people would have. When he was 17, he killed 3 people from a rival gang. He shot them dead. And he got sentenced to life in prison. When I met him, he had been in prison for 25 years. So he was now 42 when I met him and we're having this discussion. He was one of the nicest prisoners that I met. Shining face, always happy, smiling face, cheerful disposition, happy, good sense of humor, caring, smart, intelligent. And he was very well respected in that prison. The way prison is that someone who's been there longer is respected more than someone who's been there shorter. So when you have a guy who's been there for 25 years, he naturally gets a lot of respect. Once we were just talking, and I asked him about his life in Jamaica and how he came to the US, and he began to tell me a story which some of you may find triggering. He said, I was born in Jamaica. When I was 2 years old, my mum left me and went to live in the United States. She left me with my grandmother. When I was 5 years old, my grandmother left me with my uncle and she went to live in the United States. My uncle, he used to beat me. He used to beat me really bad. He had an anger problem. He used to really badly beat me. And once he threw me into a well. I said, what do you mean he threw you into a well? I said, he got angry. He just got me and he just threw me into a well. I said, how deep was the well? He said, it was like 20 feet deep or something. I said, so what did you do? He goes, I went to the bottom and I was struggling, and my 7-year-old cousin, he saw what happened, and then he passed down a bucket and he was able to get me out. He said that at the age of 6, I tried to kill myself. He said, because I thought that everyone in my life left me. My mum left me, my grandmother left me, my uncle used to beat me really badly. So I began to think that there must be something wrong with me. And what is the point of me living in this world? If I'm such a bad person, there's something wrong with me. Better for me to save the world and just to save the world from this heartache and for me to take my own life. And that's a 5 or 6 year old child is thinking that. That's what he was thinking. Eventually, somehow he went to the United States and he went with his family. And how is he going to feel towards his mum or his grandmother, who left him to go and live in America? So unsurprisingly, he found comfort, safety, security. He found it in a gang in Washington, D.C. And by the time he's 17, he's killed 3 people from a rival gang, and he's in prison now. When he would have killed those 3 people, he would not have felt anything because of what happened to him in his childhood. He would not have thought of violence as a bad thing, or he would not have thought of the consequences. He just did it. And now he was 25 years later telling me this story. Attachment is everything. The attachments that we form in the early part of our life with our primary caregivers, with our parents, with the adults in our lives, when we are a child, when we are that innocent baby that has just come into the world with sparkling eyes and a smiling face and full of wonder, and we make attachments with people to feel safe with them. I met many people in prison. In 11 years in prison, I met people that had murdered people, that had stabbed people, that had killed people, that had hurt people, that had done a lot of bad things. And when I got to know them and I looked into their lives, there was a few factors that were the same in all of their cases. And one major factor that kept on coming up many times, I'm talking about men here obviously, absent father. When I say absent father, I mean either the father wasn't there because he wasn't even there at the birth, let alone be there in the early part of the child's life, or maybe the father was present physically in the house and still living in that same house, but he was absent from the life of his child because he's in his own world, or he's in his phone, or he's at work, or he's got no time to connect with this child. But it was the same thing. One of the problems we have in the UK at the moment, we have this problem of knife crime. We have this problem of knife crime where young people have any dispute and then they just go and they just stab someone. Or this thing of respect, or disrespect rather, they call it. You disrespected me. You know, you're looking at me. You look at someone for more than 1 second, he'll take a knife out and stab you. Where does this come from? Let me tell you this scenario. Imagine this boy is born into the world with those sparkling eyes, full of wonder, full of delight. He's coming into this big wide world. The most important man in that child's life is not there. He's gone. Wasn't even there at birth. This child goes through the early part of his life. It goes to school and it sees other children. Their dads come to drop them off or to pick them up. Their dads come to their school plays or to their parents' evenings. But his dad isn't there. Maybe he sends him a card once a year on Eid or Christmas. Maybe sends him a bit of money. Maybe he comes around once in a month and gives him some toys and goes away. This child grows up thinking, there must be something wrong with me. Because if that's the way children think. Children do not think like adults. They don't have brains where they can analyze and talk. No, they think, for children, they live in a very simple world. They live in the present. And there's a lot for us to learn from children. How the child thinks of it is, there must be something wrong with me, because if there was not anything wrong with me, then why would my dad leave me? This child now, this boy now grows up, and it's now 13 or 14. It finds comfort and solace from an older gang member who's a drug dealer. And I knew these older drug dealers who told me how they used to recruit youngsters from estates and be like a father figure and role model and mentors to them. I know that part of it as well. So he then grows up and he is very fragile. He may have this outer tough thing where he can talk and make people laugh, and he's got big muscles, and he's very confident in the way that he talks, or he can, you know, make poetry, or he can rap, or whatever, or he can be popular. But that's all a front, because it's easy to control the external when inside you're broken. And I saw that many times. You know, like they have this saying that empty teacups make a lot of noise. You know, if you tap an empty teacup, it echoes. But if there's tea inside there, then it's not going to make that noise. This child is now 13, 14 years of age, is carrying a knife. Someone comes along, they stare at that child, you know, or somehow they, you know, he gets the impression that this person is looking at me. Immediately his brain it goes into that threat response, which he saw as which he experienced as a child. He feels so insecure. He feels so unsafe. He feels his sense of identity has been violated. That maybe this person is looking at me, they think I'm bad. And the only solution he has is to take out the knife, and he has to kill that person. And what does it all go down to? Goes back to early childhood attachment. Attachment is everything. The attachments that we form as children, as babies even. They say that how a child will develop as an adult is developed in the first 6 months of life. Some say first 2 years, or some say most of it is in the first 6 months and the rest of it is in the first 2 years of life, even before the child is able to speak. But it feels this closest at this sense of attachment with people. And a lot of people, this is something that they don't realize. If the child can't speak, people nowadays, they're busy on their phones, or they're in a virtual world, or they're busy going out with their friends. I remember I had a friend once, and he was like, messaged me and said, hey, you want to go out and eat? And I said, bro, didn't your wife just give birth last week? Because yeah, but my mother-in-law's staying over and helping. And I was like, you've only got 4 weeks. 4 weeks is the neonatal newborn stage. Then that child will become a baby. And you want to go out? Or how about you stay with your mother-in-law and you help the baby so your wife can sleep, or she can rest, for example. So you shouldn't be going out, especially not now in this time. You should only be going to work and back. You should be going out and chilling out. Not at this stage, not such early on. A lot of people don't realize how important this early childhood attachment is. It's important to put in the time to build and form these attachments early on in your child's life. Otherwise, you will be spending a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of money later on to fix it. It's easier now. What does that child want from you? Just wants you to kick the ball with it, or to read a book with it, or to go and look at the trees, or to go to the park. It's easy. But 20 years time, that child might be in prison. You're going to have to spend a lot of money and a lot of time. You may have to go to another city, and you'd have to pay money to try to go there to visit your child and to try and build the attachment when your child is in prison. Or you may have to pay for like therapy for your child because they've been damaged, or they've become an addict, or they want to commit suicide or whatever. It's easier to do it. The younger the child is, the easier to do it. At this moment, if your child is young, you are the most important person for that child. Let's say take a 3-year-old child, for example. You are the most important person in that child's life. Fast forward another 10-15 years, and that child is going to have its own friends. It's going to have a teenager. It's going to feel embarrassed around you. It's not going to want to know you. You know, you can try and make all these attachments or go out. It's not going to be interested. It's easy to do it when you're younger. Please look at the description below, and there's some clips that I've shared, some really important clips that talk about attachment. Dr. Gabor Mate, he talks about attachment. There's a child psychologist, an American, called the Attachment Nerd, and she talks a lot about what is attachment and how children form attachments, and she gives small tips. For example, if you've got a 5-year-old child, when you're speaking to that 5-year-old child, come down to that child's level, because seeing someone towering over it activates the threat response in a child. For example, things like that. Again, a caveat: you're a sensible person who's watching this. You can take everything with a pinch of salt, meaning that if there's something that you hear that doesn't sit right with you, you don't have to take it. It's like with anything. I found this very beneficial. I found some of this material quite beneficial. I don't agree with everything that they say, because some of it conflicts against my religious beliefs. I don't take that bit, but I take the other stuff, which is good. So please look at the description, and you're going to find some links and resources and some videos there that talk about attachment, and you can go and research more about this. If you are enjoying this series and you like this content, please share it far and wide. I'm trying to get to 100,000 subscribers in the next 12 months, but I don't just want every man and his dog to click subscribe. I want people that have benefited from this content to subscribe to it. So if you're benefiting from this, please do share it amongst people who you feel would benefit. Until the next video, thank you for watching.
أخي أنت حر وراء السدود، أخي أنت حر بتلك القيود، إذا كنت بالله مستعصما فماذا يضيرك كيد العبيد، فماذا يضيرك كيد العبيد. أخي أنت حر